I'm Andrew Lockwood. I'm running for the 46th district in Norwich, Connecticut, which is basically the downtown city of Norwich, three-quarters of the city. I guess we can go from there.
All right. Claire, would you like to start?
Yeah, this district is different from most districts in that it's only one town, as you said, the urban sections of Norwich. And as that, what are you hearing that Norwich people want from their legislator? Is there something specific that people want?
Well, I know they're very upset on the whole tax issues and toll issues. That's brought up at every door I've been to. I've been to 2,600 doors already, and they're upset that the state's considering a possibility of municipal and statewide property tax. A lot of these people have small single-family homes, and they're very concerned about that. They're also concerned about tolls because a lot of them work. I've met with a lot of nurses. Like, for instance, my mother being 90, we have a visiting nurse that comes from Branford. So as she told us, if those tolls go into effect, she's going to have to quit her job because she'd be paying almost $200 more a month out of her salary to get around where she has to go. The middle class and working poor are really concerned about the tolls. One of the guys was telling me yesterday, matter of fact, and I had the same experience, that he does not have an easy pass. So if he'd got fined and he forgot to pay the fine, instead of like a $5 or $10 toll, now you've got a $100 fine on top of it. Connecticut is considering if you don't pay that within a 60-day period, they would revoke your driver's license. So he goes, not only are they taking my livelihood away, but now they're going to take my license away where I can't get to work anyways. So he goes, as a working poor guy, Andy, why shouldn't I be on welfare? He goes, I'm all for working, but if they're going to put me in a harder situation he goes, I got huge property taxes. If they put a statewide property tax on tolls, he goes, I would have to consider leaving Connecticut. And that's quite, I would say, out of at least 1,800 doors, the first thing that comes up is Connecticut is way overtaxed already, and they're just not interested in any more taxes at all.
Well, let me ask you then, what steps do you believe that the state has to take to restore fiscal stability and stop the deficits that it faces year after year?
That is actually an excellent question. I think that we've got to look into that budget of anywhere that we can cut wasteful spending. I think also they need to start earmarking things that are supposed to go to certain areas. Like, for instance, educational fund. They brought the lottery in a long time ago to supply education. That money kind of is never found now. Plus, we're adding lottery game after lottery game after lottery game. So I think that they should start earmarking the lottery supposed to go to education. There's a fund for that. It's not touched. I like kind of the idea of zero-based budgeting for a couple reasons. I used to run car dealerships, and we used to start a budget on what you need and not what you want. You know what I mean? So if this is where our tier line is, then we should start there, get everybody set up with that budget. And if there's extra money around to spread for it, great. As far as like unfunded mandates and the huge pension deficit, that's going to take a lot of crafty people to sit at tables from both sides of the aisle and work out deals that are compromised. The people that work for those pensions are expecting to get them. I think we have to change that going forward. But I think in every department there, we really got to take a hard look of where any kind of wasteful spending is being used and change the way we're doing business that way. Also, we need to roll back some regulations. People, like for instance, also if the tolls come, an employer's going to have to tell their people you're moving to a state that already has a lot of regulations, and on top of it, you're going to be expecting to have tolls. So we got to be more business friendly in the state of Connecticut to attract more people from out of state, which will then increase the tax rolls across the state. More people coming is a good thing. I used to be very active in real estate. Because of a car accident, I haven't been as active lately, but my boss has his office in West Hartford, and I mean, there's tons of empty houses there that are just sitting on the market that are not being sold. So it's, people can say, well, they're still getting the taxes from the bank, but it's not adding to our economy by having people living here, working here, paying and contributing to the society. So.
Thank you.
So far, Norwich has been relatively safe from the cuts that other towns saw in education funding, and yet the city school budget is still in big deficits, mainly because of special education and those costs. Have you participated in those forums that the mayor has hosted, and do you have any thoughts on revamping special education reimbursements so that towns aren't in that situation?
Actually, my son Andrew, he's an adult now, but he was involved in special education his whole life. So I empathize with school districts that have to deal with that because it is a huge cost. I mean, for instance, my son, when we lived in Ledyard, had to be transferred all the way to East Lyme because they didn't have a program there for Ledyard. I think we have to look at possibilities of saving any place we can save money there. I did have a person talk to me about maybe regionalizing special education. I'm not really sure that's a super answer or not. I think, though, a lot of wasteful spending is going on in the state for things that should be put to areas of education. Granted, over the summer, union employees are due a bonus that was promised to them. But that $80 million, if that could have went to education instead of paying those bonuses, could have helped a lot of towns out. It's just not a problem in Norwich; it's a problem everywhere. Education is important to me, and I think the mayor in Norwich has done. He's worked. Peter Nystrom has worked extremely hard keeping that budget not to increase taxes, and fought extremely hard to try to weigh off the bay of being tempted to spend taxpayers' money unusefully. When I first moved to Norwich, I heard him do a speech, and he said, "I will not spend taxpayers' money unwisely. It's their money. We're the shepherd of guarding that money. We got to do the best we can with the money we have without putting an extra burden on our town." And he's held the line very well for the last 2 years. But there's got to be things done in Hartford where money can be, and there again, I think the lottery being spent unwisely and should be turned back to education and make it an untouchable education fund would help all the towns.
Along the lines of taxes, the Republican candidate for governor has said he intends to work with the legislature to gradually reduce and ultimately eliminate the income tax. Do you consider that a realistic and worthwhile goal?
I'm not sure how realistic a goal it is. I think it's a useful goal to phase it out over the period of time. I think the problem that we've faced in Connecticut numerous times, a lot of these programs come on and they're supposed to be temporary, and then they become a fixture in the society. Even when the state was doing good and they could have rolled back on a little bit, they've decided to keep it on. I'm all in favor of people having more money in their own pocketbooks to spend. I think people are smart enough and wise enough to invest their money in ways that can stimulate the state. Can he get it done in 8 years? I think he has. There is a possibility to do that. It is going to take work. I think when whatever the legislative body and the governorship becomes this year, they all have a lot of work to roll up their sleeves and get fiscally responsible in Hartford. None of this stuff can be accomplished unless you have legislators that are willing to work together to take a hard look at a budget and say, this stuff is being spent unwisely. We need to be a team and get the state back on track. Because without the fiscal house getting in order in Connecticut, nothing's going to change.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've been following the issues revolving around CMEC and municipal utilities. A lot of changes were made in the past couple of years about that. And there was recently the public forum hosted by the municipal advocate, and one of the residents, a citizen, came forward and said that he didn't think the reforms went far enough. Do you think there's movement, discussion for state oversight, maybe PURA, of municipal utilities where there is no regulation at this time?
Well, to be fair to the question, I've not actually followed that much this summer. The main reason for is we're kind of a one person team doing a huge grassroots job at the door. We're making a huge effort there. And unfortunately, and I apologize to the voters, I've kind of taken a second step out and really took our case to the voters versus going to forums that I probably should have been to. One thing I do like about being a newer resident to Norwich, I do like the factor of their private utility where they have, for instance, when I was living here, you get a surprise water bill every few months. You get a surprise bill of this every little while. There, at least every month, you're getting your water bill, your light bill, your gas bill all at once. So you can really focus yourself on a budget going forward. I think that's a positive attitude. When Eversource decided to give you the supplier charge and a light bill charge, which seems to be the exact same charge, it's kind of, frustrating because it seems like they're just getting a fee for, the same exact fee you're paying for utilities, you're getting for having utilities. I don't think you should have to pay extra to have, utilities for it. Um, but that there again, utilities is a big factor on bringing people to the state too. If the cost of doing business is too expensive through the cost of utilities and cost of insurance and all that, we're just putting a deterrent on getting people to come here. And states around us are taking our deterrent and making it their advantage by offering things we're not willing to offer. So people are going to Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut. I mean, not Connecticut. Sorry, New Hampshire and New Jersey. But I will research that further once I get rolling around here a little bit. I haven't had that question at the door, so it's been mostly yelling about taxes.
Job growth in Connecticut has lagged behind other states. What can the legislature do to encourage good job growth?
Well, I think we covered that a little bit in the last topic, which is we have to roll back some of the regulations in Connecticut that are hurting it. I think we also have to look to make energy and the cost of doing business here more efficient and business friendly. Because, us as consumers, we look at utilities different than a business does. When a business comes here, they're looking at how much it costs to do business here, how much taxes do we have to pay to have our employees here. They're looking at the bottom line to make their company, profitable. Obviously, if they're not going to be profitable, it's not going to happen. I think we lost a big opportunity with Amazon when they were looking for places. I told some people in New London here that I knew, Fort Trumbull, which is still empty, would have been a great pitch to have Amazon there. You could have shipping right there. You'd have easy access off the highways. And because they thought Connecticut wasn't all that business friendly and it wasn't advantageous to come here, they alluded not to come here at all. So I think we're missing opportunities with bigger companies that would bring employees and bigger growth. Let's face it, we have more people living here, more people buying houses, more people paying taxes. It's ultimately going to benefit everybody.
The Thames River, Norwich has Norwich Harbor and is considered a small harbor with the Port Authority. Yet the Port Authority has said that it won't forget the small harbors on the inlets and things. Do you have any thoughts on the city's waterfront and how the state legislature or the Port Authority could help there?
I have talked to the Port Authority there a little bit already. The people that are the Port Commission there that are working on, like the old salvage yard there that was cleaned up, they're taking ideas now of how to enhance that, maybe put some type of, I guess they're concerned also about having dockage right there by Brown Park. So they've been talking about maybe moving something like that over to that side, cleaning it up and having where you could, empty your boat off and not, because it's very hard to do there in Brown Park. I know the mayor is very actively trying to sell the American Wharf there, so they would have that as an ongoing business. And I think they're pretty close to making a deal there, actually, from last time I had a meeting with them. But Norwich, that's a beautiful little harbor there. A lot of people, even myself, when I was boating from here, I'd go up the Thames River on a boat trip up to the harbor there for like the Italian festival or whatever. Nice trip up the river. And with more traffic up there, maybe even Mohegan Sun would considering putting docks right there where you can come off the river and park there and get off and go to the Mohegan Sun. They're being, very aggressive on developing that area. And actually, it's some of the stuff that Mohegan Sun's doing across the river and whatever. I think Norwich is about ready to explode. They're going to need, I think we saw with Barrett Jackson last year, there was such a need for more hotel rooms in that area. And now they got the convention center there, which looks like they're going to have a bunch of things coming on. The harbor can really benefit from that. For all the fall foliage people going up the river this time of year is really nice. And there is, I was surprised this summer when I was down at one of the festivals that the huge yacht type boats that were pulling up in the Norwich Harbor. So I think it's a positive thing going forward there.
The Democratic governor candidate wants the legislature to phase in a $15 minimum wage. Would you support such legislation?
The problem that I see on some of these minimum wage issues, a lot of them are entry-level jobs like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, which usually are people that are, either A, still in high school, B, getting out of high school, that are looking for a stepping stone, in some maybe hospitality career or whatever. The problem with forcing that minimum wage on businesses, once you do that, now everything that they're selling, their cost is going to go up and ultimately affect, the consumer. So I'm not really sure that that's a great thing for Connecticut right now, because I really see Connecticut right now is struggling with getting people to come here that want to work and live here because it's so expensive to do so. So until we can get our financial house under order to make it more friendly and not as expensive to live here, I think that's going to deter for me the idea of $15 an hour. When I was growing up as a kid, I grew up in the hospitality business. My dad ran hotels, Holiday Inns. And there, I can remember, and people think I'm joking, when I first started out, I was getting like $3.38 an hour as a bellman. Like, how could you live on that? Well, you know what? You have to budget your money and your means. But there was incentives to get off the minimum wage if you did a better job there. So I think we need to offer incentives for people to do better, to climb that ladder, than saying, rather than getting an opportunity to carry on, maybe go to college and improve your life, or maybe moving to management, just giving arbitrary raises that are not merit-based kind of, hurts the business and the person for me itself, it gave a huge drive knowing if you reach that goal, you can make more money, so you tried harder to make that money. Like when I was in sales, a good part of my life, my wife used to joke at the time, you don't sell cars, Andy, we don't eat, so sell cars, because it was all commission-based sales, so you were incentivized by doing a better job to get more money. And that really made me carry on to other things in my life. It made me go back to college and go to law school, and I think that, and somehow I think just giving an upswing takes away some of the dreams that you might have that you have to work hard to get in life. So.
Okay. Would you support a bill legalizing marijuana possession and use for adults 21 and older?
That's always been a very hard question for me because, just because when I was younger in my life, my brother got in trouble in Vermont for, being around the marijuana gang and then he got involved with other type of drugs, and for 45 years I never saw my brother because of that. Being involved, going through law school and all that stuff, a lot of people ask me questions that kind of is gray areas or bending the law. I guess I'd have to ask that if the federal Constitution allowed for the change in that bill to be legal, then I obviously will follow the law and the Constitution. Medical marijuana, there seems to be good studies that are helping people. All I can do is in my comment on that is what I've seen out of what happened to my brother and my family. He started out, using marijuana, then selling marijuana, then the marijuana wasn't good enough, so he had to go on to something else. A lot of people say it isn't a gateway drug, but my experience with my brother, it turned into a gateway drug for him. Nobody else in our family ever did it. He went to Woodstock, it was the thing of the thing, and then it was off to the races for there. And he ultimately got in trouble a couple times for it. My brother was a straight A student, but had no common sense. So he was like, oh, this is the coolest thing to do. His friend had him take a car to Colorado with a bale of marijuana, and he got arrested for going through several states illegally. So, and then rather than stopping, which you would think he'd learn, he didn't. It just continued on to something else. And now in his life, he actually, tells younger people about that that's the stupidest thing you could ever done. Because if I look back on my life, he's not used it for 40 years now. But he goes, that was the dumbest thing I did in my life because it led me on to try other stuff that I probably shouldn't have tried. So all I can do is comment on that by the law and by my own family experience. Maybe for some other people, it would work out well. The medical side of it seems to be helping people with cancer and stuff, so that's probably a good thing. It's controlled by prescription or whatever. But otherwise, I guess I'd have to say no.
Let's see. You talked a little bit about tolls, and one of the questions we were trying to make sure we asked of everyone is whether the state should install electronic tolls on its highway as a way of raising the revenue. Like the marijuana, the question is partly about revenue. So the point would be to raise the revenue necessary to support transportation development and transit development. So could you answer about the tolls, and also how would you do that without tolls? If we don't have that revenue.
Well, one of the things that, and I've been talking to a lot of people that feel that we do have adequate revenue that's not really being spent properly. It's kind of everything that comes in from like the casinos and other areas seems to go in a general fund, even through the lottery system. And their concern is, I can tell you exactly what their concern is as far as tolls. It's going to cost the state, quite a bit of money. It's not giving us employees. Most of the employees will be New York-based type employees for the person. And this happened to me, so I can comment on this very easily. Going to Florida a couple years ago when they were doing the Tappan Zee Bridge, I went over that bridge with electronic tolls. The big sign said no tolls in force at this particular time. So everybody figured, there's, because we were just going to pay it because we didn't have Easy Pass. Well, there's no place to pay it. So 2 months later, I get a bill of $100. 2 months later after that, I get a bill of $200. About a month later, when I got out of the hospital, the bill is $550 with a warning: pay this for a $5 toll, or you're going to, lose your license. So they're also in studies that I've read, it's going to cost almost $438,000 a day. Other parts of the country have what are called progressive tolls. So if they're not meeting their fundamental raise of funds during that day, the tolls increase. It happened to me once in Florida. I went to one place, it cost me $750 going up and $37 coming back. So, I know we're all looking for other ways of revenue to come in, and it seems like every time we get another stream of revenue, it's spent someplace that it's not allocated to go for. So I think before we're looking for new streams of revenue, we got to get our fiscal house in order. And I don't think we should be asking taxpayers for any more money till we really know, where we are. They're talking $3 to $5 billion of shortfall, and yet last week the Democratic governor was saying, "Oh, we're going to use $3 million of our surplus money." When you're in a deficit, you don't have surplus money. So the $2 billion you want to take out of the rainy day fund is not surplus money, because if they threw that right to the deficit now, maybe it would decrease it quite a bit. But I think we have to be realistic going forward until that financial house is spelled out and corrected. I think some of the budget plans that are coming forward with either zero-based budgeting or line item budgeting, so we can see where the money's coming from, directly affecting the state, like I've talked about some people already, about streamlining and innovating motor vehicle.
I was going to ask you that, because you mentioned that to the Realtors Board.
Yes.
Can you talk about your plan?
Actually, the plan is such common sense it should already be implemented. I was in the car business for 20 years. I was the general manager of a car dealership for 15 years. Now the nice thing is you can go to a dealership, and when you buy a new car or used car, they can register your car right on the spot. Everybody complains about the lines at DMV and motor vehicles. So, when we go there as consumers, we might be there a few hours all ticked off because the lines are long. You got 7 people at the registers, and you got hundreds of people there. So it's very simple. Not wiping out DMV, but innovating it where you can go to your local car dealership and re-register your car. It'll cut the lines at motor vehicle. It'll make the motor vehicle employees, who we all say are crabby, happier because they don't have to deal with 500 people, through the course of a week. We look at it when you're there, and I was sitting there last week just getting my license fixed, and used to be able to go in to the license part, get your license done late. Well, now they get you in a pool, so you have to wait. You might only have a 5-minute thing, and you're there 3 hours to get a simple change. Whereas if you could go to the dealership, it gives the dealership opportunities to meet you, the consumer, maybe offer you car repairs, maybe offer you cleaning of your car, maybe offer you a new car, but you can also not have to wait in line, get your car registered, and go. They already have the systems in the car dealerships. So it would save the state tons of money. The dealerships could benefit by getting some type of financial aid from DMV. Not a huge amount, but they do charge a small fee now to go to motor vehicles. So share that with the dealerships. It'll take the load off DMV. People will be happier. Instead of waiting hours and hours and hours, you could be in a dealership 10 minutes, get re-registered, and on your way.
Okay.
And it'll definitely make those state employees a lot more happier, I can empathize with them. I looked at it when I was there as just one person, but I'm saying, oh my God, these poor people have to see about 1,000 people a week. No wonder they're crabby all the time. And we, as consumers, go, those people are mean. Well, if you want to sit there all week and deal with that, you'd probably be mean too. So.
You all set? Yep. I think we're all set then.
Oh, rats!
Thank you.
I was
very
waiting
much.
for the torture end.
Is there any final summary that you'd like to give? Any?
Well, going to after living here in London for 30 years, I've been really pleased about how Norwich's approach is for one reason. The mayor there and a lot of the people that are working hard really are looking out for the taxpayer instead of what should we do studies on? Where should we look for things and spend money on? Instead of doing that, they're saying we want to improve the city, but we don't want to spend the taxpayers' money crazily. I mean, Mayor Nystrom ad nauseum at the meetings I've been at, he goes, "We're here to do a job. This isn't our money; it's the taxpayers' money, and it should be respected and spent properly." And when it's not, he really gets. I mean, this last budget, they were talking they were going to have an increase, and he goes, "We are not having an increase. I will go through every inch of that budget till we find enough that we can cut for our taxpayers to get the service that they need, and keep the city running properly. And I like that philosophy because he's not spending your money crazily. He's doing his absolute best to make sure your money is spent wisely. I mean, they've been talking about new bonding, for instance, and that new bonding is a good idea, and people are getting upset about it. And I'd say, well, you know what? When they bonded 10 years ago to do improvements in the city, you're now seeing the fruits of that labor. When you do that right off the bat, the first day or week or month, you're not going to really see the improvement. But over a course of time, and since it has helped them a bit, it's probably a good idea to look at other infrastructure things that can bring businesses to Norwich. And that's his goal. He really wants to expand that tax base. And if I'm fortunate enough and things work out, I'll be towing the line in Hartford to help him get that done.